Next item on the agenda is an update on PFAS, which we've all been reading about.
And for that, I'll make a quick introduction
Yes,
if I could.
yes, please.
Amy Tutwiler is part of the county's court counsel office, and she is working with us on this process, and
Is that her?
yep, that's her.
Okay.
So,
It would be very,
so she's going to come out here.
Sure.
She would be so gracious and give an update on this. Due to their involvement, we're limiting what we say, and so we've asked Amy to address the issue.
Good.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, you bet, you bet. So this is my second presentation on PFAS. I also did one at Lakes and Watershed Commission, so for some people in the audience, you might hear some repeat. My background, I joined Dane County's Corporation Counsel's office this year, but I've been practicing law for about 25 years, and one area of my practice is environmental law. I have a master's in environmental studies from the UW, in addition to my law degree. I just have some few points I want to catch everybody up to on what we know basically at this point about the PFAS contamination. And it is a big picture summary at this point. In March of 2019, the Air National Guard received results of what they call Phase 1 investigation for PFAS at the Truex airfield. That Phase 1 inspection found soil contamination and groundwater contamination in sampling that exceeded the United States EPA lifetime drinking water health advisory for two compounds, PFOA and PFOS. The exceedances were found in groundwater, and then there were also exceedances found for the U.S. Air Force soil screening level for one of the compounds, PFOA. In October 2019, DNR notified 3 parties that they believe are responsible for PFAS contamination. And I say PFAS as the general terminology that's used to describe these larger group of compounds. Anyway, for contamination found in Starkweather Creek. The parties that were named included Dane County, the City of Madison, and the National Guard. Also in October of 2019, there was a second letter DNR sent to Dane County notifying that there was PFAS found in the airport stormwater system. And DNR takes the position we're separately responsible for addressing cleanup in the stormwater system. The suspected source of this PFAS contamination at this point in the vicinity of the airport right now is considered to be likely to be the past use of firefighting foam, known as aqueous film forming foam, or AFFF. Dane County, the airport contracts with the Guard for its firefighting services. Given that, we have no reason to believe that county employees actually handle the firefighting foam at any point. The FAA, separately in another layer of this, requires airport firefighting services use the AFF foam for training and emergencies. It actually, at this point, it's the best known product for putting out jet fuel and petroleum-based fires, and it has the quickest effect time, so the highest level of survival. But FAA, Congress has set a 3-year deadline for the federal government, for the FAA to come up with a replacement foam for the AFF. And right now we're in year 2 of those 3 years. Historically, the firefighter training occurred on the Truex Air National Guard base. And the base at this point has advised the county that it's no longer conducting firefighting services at this location. Rather, it's doing those at Vogue Field in Juneau County. So at this point, the only source of any potential new PFAS discharge would be in the event of an emergency. In the October notices that DNR sent, they set deadlines for the county and the other responsible parties to take certain specific actions and to proceed with an investigation of PFAS contamination. And rest assured, Dane County has met all of its deadlines. At this stage of the process, the county has retained a consultant, Mead and Hunt, who is keeping developing a national perspective on PFAS issues at airports. Also, we have the advantage that they know the airport's stormwater system very well, and that's an important part of the conduit.
I hate to interrupt you, but can I ask him a question about that? Is this part of what we paid for with regard to taking on Mead and Hunt for general consulting
you're right.
services? Is this going to be part of what, is this part of what she's talking about going to be rolled into that?
Initially, we're using the on-call services contract to address this, and then a separate contract will ultimately be developed specifically to address this. It will go beyond the scope of just the on-call services.
Okay, so what you're saying together then is that the county corp council and the county's overall plan is to use Mead and Hunt to help get a plan together to address the issues in terms of liability, in terms of the DNR's determinations. and that
Right.
kind of thing.
That's right.
Okay.
And they will probably be a continuing part of that because of their expertise and knowledge of our airport and their more global perspective of the PFAS issue.
And they've assured you that they have specific knowledge, experience, training in dealing with these specific chemicals?
We've asked that question, and they have not only with their own staff, but with potential sub-consultants as well.
Yeah, I think that's an important part to understand.
I don't want to step on the rest of your thing
No,
at
no,
all.
that's
I hope that
okay.
this-
No, I don't mind at all. I think the concept that you're going to find is that Mead and Hunt will be the primary contact, and they definitely have a level of expertise about A, this airport, and B, PFAS impacts and airport responses nationwide. In addition, they will look to others for expertise in things like groundwater and basically environmental sampling, and so that I expect they'll be leading a larger team
All right,
as
well,
we move forward.
if ever there was a subject we need to start getting our head on, this is it. And if these are the best people we can find to help us do that, then all the better. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all good. So in addition to hiring Mead and Hunt, a second step that was required and has been completed is that the county worked with the city and the Guard to post warning signs along Starkweather Creek relating to PFAS exposure. And also, as a result of sampling that the DNR did, there have been new fish advisories that have been issued for reducing risks associated with consuming fish that would be impacted by PFAS. And so we've posted signs for that. Although that process is going to continue based on the data. Also, we sent out at the DNR's direction and pursuant to their rules, we've set out public notices to impacted residents. And then just keeping you in track with the process, in early December of last year now, we submitted through Mead and Hunt a proposed work plan in accordance with the deadlines. The plan includes future sampling of the stormwater system to determine the source that is discharging the PFAS into the stormwater system, and additional investigation into the historic operations at the airport that might be a potential source of PFAS. Basically, we're chasing down the PFAS to identify where it's coming from. And on that subject, I'll add for your orientation, Lakes and Watershed wouldn't care about this, but under your stormwater permit, there's an obligation to remove illicit discharges from the stormwater system. It's a mandate in the permit, it's a mandate for all stormwater permits. So we take the position that, legal takes the position that what the PFAS in the stormwater system is in fact an illicit discharge to our system. So, so work is underway to move in the direction of addressing that. Then since that December report, DNR released the results of the additional sampling in Starkweather Creek. That was in January, about January 15th. And so the consultant, Mead and Hunt, went back and added additional sampling and planning based on that new data. At this point, we have, the Mead and Hunt has resubmitted the addendum report, and we have oral approval from DNR, and we're moving ahead with sample activities. And then I'm just going to say, this is just a very general point, but it's important to keep in mind that this process of investigation is going to occur in steps. That's the national progression of a contaminated investigation site. And so we will learn more as more data comes in. At this point, they're sampling the stormwater system, and then expect there'll be future layers of sampling. I think of it like, you know, like a targeting system. You start with what you know, and then you move toward what you suspect is the source. That's one layer of investigation. The other layer of investigation, big picture, is to identify the nature and extent of the contamination in the soils and the groundwater. And so that's the process that will be undertaken to identify exactly what we're dealing with. And then that work is essential to developing a scientifically based and, you know, most cost-effective response. So that's what I have for you today. This is an ongoing process. We are committing to engage in a public engagement process, and at this point, in addition to these talks, and then of course public health has been very active too in getting the word out about PFAS. We'll be holding a public meeting in mid-March on behalf of the county and the airport.
So any mitigation plan will be deferred until such time as you know what you're dealing with, so you can more efficiently plan to deal with it?
Big picture, yes. However, DNR is putting pressure on for mitigation as soon as possible, and there's one very logical next step for mitigation that is included in this first plan, and that is to identify where, it comes back to the point about illicit discharge, identify where PFAS is coming into the stormwater system at the highest levels, and to work to basically line or tighten, you know, grout the stormwater pipes in those areas to reduce that inflow into stormwater, which will have the effect of reducing the discharge from the stormwater system into the creek.
Is that process undergoing now, or it's just gonna?
Well, we're in the first steps of it. The first steps being to do the sampling to identify where it's coming from.
Yeah, before you can do that.
Yeah, it's not practical to, you know, reline the entire stormwater system, so you're gonna be looking for trouble spots. So those have to be identified first.
I do want to just clarify something that you said.
Sure.
I think you just missed a word maybe in your material. Amy indicated that the Guard has advised they're not performing the firefighting services anymore. They actually are providing us still with the services, they're just not doing the training here.
Oh, my mistake.
So I want to make sure that that's clear and everybody
Yeah, that was-
understands they
Yeah.
are still
Yeah.
providing the firefighting service.
She had mentioned that the foam might still have to be used in the case of fire or other emergency, but it would only be done
And
during
training is
emergency as
involved.
opposed to not during regular trainings, which
Right.
Right, training is now at Volk Field.
But the foam that's being used now is still suspect, even though it's changed from past?
I don't believe the
composition?
foam has changed. I
Yeah,
think we're
it is
still at the
suspect.
point where they have to use the foam that's original formulation.
I think the confusion there is the foam that is used on, not on airports. Some of those have changed.
Oh, okay.
But the FAA still requires the original AFFF foam to be
Okay,
used at airports.
But they're still working on this 3-year plan to switch that out with something less
Right.
problematic.
They are, and
And
to
we're in
that
year 2 of
end,
that 3-year process.
right, just a few weeks ago, they opened a new research facility in New Jersey, where they continue to work on that process.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you have a question?
I have a question, I don't know if there's room for a question from the public, just a quick PFAS question.
Who's the question of?
The woman who just spoke, I just had a quick question, and that is, the science of mitigating or cleaning up PFAS, is it there? I mean, is there a method that we know cleans this stuff up in the ground or the water?
Well,
Other
let me
than
say that
lighting.
I am a lawyer, not a scientist. I've been around this for a while. I believe there's not, I don't that as far as I've read so far, there's no panacea here solution.
And
There's a lot of questions, not solutions, like I would say.
I'm also curious, just as a citizen, if I have a reverse osmosis water filter in my sink, for example, does that make a dent in anything that's coming out of my faucet?
Yeah, that's a good question for public health.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
And
But I think I'll put one in my house too.
and just to be clear, there is a mitigation, this beginnings of a mitigation plan in place that will at least stop the
Further.
PFAS that may be there from getting from the stormwater, or from the stormwater system to the creek, right?
It isn't underway yet, but that is the plan. And
Okay,
it will have the effect of reducing the discharge. The objective is to reduce the concentration of PFAS discharging into the creek from the stormwater system.
got it.
And removing the training from here out to Vogue Field will mean that there's no, that
Additional,
the addition of more PFAS from that procedure will cease.
Right, and I
State
can't
of
speak with
emergency.
authority on
Yeah.
the times, but I understand, Kim probably can, that there was also, prior to their moving it, there was also a change in their protocol where they weren't just, as I understand it, the training required them to discharge it to the ground, but they found some option, even before they moved to Vogue Field, they found some option to either not do that or reduce how much they had to do that.
Right, they were not spraying it onto the ground, they were recovering what they did spray during the trip.
And they've been doing that for several years,
They
right?
actually have, yes.
Even well in advance of
Mhm.
this being an issue.
Right.
so
And
we're still dealing with decades of
Yes.
prior discharges, and that's what's in
Absolutely.
the system, and that's what, okay. All
Right.
right, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks again, yes. It's good to have an
She has a
expert on
question.
here. Yes.
So is your focus here, is it mostly for PFAS, is it just what's getting into the waterway, or is it like what's, because it can also get into the waste treatment centers and like get spread, is it just, is your
Yeah.
role kind of limited to just the water? And then the second question I have is, it looks like they want to expand,
You know,
Like-
excuse me, but I think we have to limit the questions. That she came here prepared to make a presentation to the commission, not to answer questions of the public.
oh,
Is that
okay.
correct?
Right.
Well, it's a
No, it's-
fair point,
Okay.
to be fair to everyone, yeah.
Pardon me?
You're right, I didn't come prepared to answer questions, and I've got to be careful not to
Okay.
go.
that would be
Yeah,
part of the
sure.
public meeting that
Yeah.
would be held in the middle of March.
Oh, okay.
And we have some people that would like to make public comment on items that are not on the agenda. We have some people registered here. Keep in mind that these are an opportunity for you to speak for 3 minutes or less. It's not a question and answer period, but we're very happy to hear opinions and thoughts on matters that may pertain to the airport. So I've got a number of folks here. I'll call you in again 3 minutes if you'd like to stand up in front and make a presentation. Ed Bloom is the first
I
one.
feel like I'm standing up in first grade in front of the class. I appreciate the discussion on Sun Country. I'll be on one of those planes headed for Tampa next month. So I try to support it. I live at 1019 Melvin Court. Here's your map with the sound contours. My home is right here at the bottom of this red loop. And according to the draft EIS, my home will get hit by 108 decibel noises. That is, that's the sound of a rock concert in my backyard. Now people say, well, why don't you move? Well, I'm retired, but I got a fixed income. If I tried to sell my current condo and move to a new condo, I will have to pay $25,000 to $50,000 more for a comparable condo, and I don't have any money to do that. But I also want to address quickly, you're about to renegotiate a joint use agreement with the Air Force. And I would encourage you to solicit public input on that, just as the Air Force solicited public input on the draft EIS. I know you'll get a lot of comments that you won't necessarily find helpful, but there might be some helpful ones in there. And I think in terms of transparency, it would, build some degree of trust with the general public to have some kind of transparent process for that. So I wish you the best of luck in all of it.
Good. I appreciate your thoughts, and it is a good thought.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
I survived the first grade class.
Next speaker, I'm not sure what the subject is, but it's Sally Young. I said 3 minutes to make a presentation. Thank you.
I just appreciate hearing about the PFAS and how everybody is really working on it. And I think my main concern at this point, it seems like we've got a lot of people in a lot of different agencies looking at it, working on it, trying to figure out what to do, trying to figure out who's responsible. But the one kind of really urgent thing, it seems to me, is as I understand it, the Department of Defense has in their budget to start construction at Truax in April. So that's just a few weeks from now. And if that is in fact true and in fact going to happen, we don't have enough information, as Amy told us, about how to mitigate and how bad it is and what's going on. And so what it looks like is we need the county to, and the airport commission, to really step up and say, we can't allow any new construction until we get this fixed. Because if they start digging up the soil and then the rains come in the spring and possibly floods, there's not going to be any way to stop all that. And then it's going to go right into the sewer system and into the lakes and the fish and the people. So I'm in Well 9 district, and we're just now in the middle of a debate about whether to close Well 9 because of the PFAS. So the plume is moving, and it seems really urgent to just focus on this one thing of not making it a lot worse at this point, because if that construction starts, it seems like it's going to make it worse by an order of who knows how much, like hugely worse. So,
Thank you. Next speaker is Crystal Price.
Hi, I'm a citizen of Madison since 1990. I've lived in my home off of Winona Drive and Buckeye Road since 91, and my water comes 100% out of Well 9. Well 9 is contaminated by PFAS, and not at different levels than the one that's been shut down here at Well 15, but it's still high. I do have reverse osmosis, and I'm not sure about that water either. And it's kind of weird to to kind of be looking at my water and thinking like, is it good, what's it doing to me? But thank goodness I'm 65 years old and that my grandchildren are not here, because what PFAS does to me and my system is way different than what it will do to young children or pregnant women. I just think we need to pay attention, and rather than clean up now so that it doesn't get worse. The second thing that I guess I want to mention is the F-35s, and I hear the F-16s. And my hearing isn't like 100%, but they are loud. And I used to teach at the school across the street from the Frank Alice Elementary School, and there were times when we were on the playground and it was just darn loud. And it's also very hard to teach children, let alone with the noise. So it was loud. I hear F-35s or worse, and it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing in Madison? Madison is supposed to be one of the top 100 places to live. And we're flying F-35s over on the east side. Why? So, good luck in your endeavors and your research, and I will be listening and staying in contact. Thank you.
Thank you. We do appreciate your thoughtful input.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Anita Heck.
I think a lot of the issues have already been addressed, but I am a resident since since 1973 in Madison. I grew up on the east side. I live in the Williamson Marquette neighborhood. I have a daughter who I've been raising, and she goes to Marquette Elementary, and I live right on the school field, and the F-16s are horrid. I mean, the dogs run inside and howl, the children get scared. I see lots of reaction in my neighborhood to the planes and the noise. And so I'm very frightened about that coming into our city and coming also just to this east side of town that I love. And my feeling about the PFAS is also I'm older. I feel like, okay, if I'm contaminated, I've had a decent life. I've read too many stories of kids in Marinette County and cancer, and 17-year-olds dying of brain tumors. I'm looking at my 13-year-old thinking, oh my God, what has she been exposed to? And to expand Truax and start new development that could unearth more contaminants before we get the cleanup underway with what's already proven at, what did I learn? I mean, I'm just informing myself. I'm not a scientist, but if the allowable is 20 parts per trillion and they're already testing at 30,000, that just seems unbelievable to me. So, and in Europe, the level is 1 part per trillion. So we're at much higher than other countries, and I just get very worried about what we're doing to Madison, like you said, and then other talks that I've heard about these being nuclear capable planes really put us in a target position, for all of a sudden the place where we're going to start housing, basing planes that carry nuclear weapons. I worry a lot about. I love the fact that we're a quiet tech town, that we're growing and we're bringing in people from all over the world, and it's a beautiful place to live. What happens when it becomes contaminated in the water, or too loud in the air, and our property values all tank? Because even if you were to buy a new condo, Ed, could you sell the one that you're in? Yeah. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next speaker will be Eugenia Highland Granados.
Hello, Eugenia. My name is Eugenia, and this is gonna be her name is Naidalina, and we have been living in Aiken Park neighborhood, 2742 Molan Street, since she was in my belly. And I breastfed, and I know that the PFAS are highly concentrated in the breast milk. That it's way much more concentrated in the breast milk than it is in a glass of water. So she already has that in her system. We were talking the other day because as a lot of people have been saying that they're very like adults and me and everything, but this is my child. I'm a single mom, I'm an immigrant. I've done everything like white America would expect me to do right. And now I feel like I'm being pushed out of my home, of our sacred space, of our sanctuary, of the only place. This is all we have, all we have. I'm not gonna stay in a place that my child is being poisoned, because there are different steps that need to happen before we decide how we're gonna be getting rid of this. These planes are a huge danger for our children, for our neighborhoods, for our gardens, for everything that this city is supposed to be believing in. I know that I've heard that a lot of people have said that this is a federal thing, that this is you can oppose. You can openly and publicly oppose, and that means a lot. Yeah, this is terrible, and I'm not sure if people really, as a whole in the city, can understand the impact of this. How am I gonna know how this impacted my daughter? Like what? When? How is she gonna know? I have also friends who live in the neighborhood who have an eviction easement or something like that. I cannot even say that. What is gonna happen to them? My house, I'm fortunate enough that my house doesn't have that. It means that the airport kind of like bought their air space. What is that? You can buy land and you can buy the air? That doesn't make any sense. What is gonna happen to all the people that if some of us, because we live in the neighborhood with the decibels, like some of us would get maybe with time and with years support from the government to like fix our homes. And these people are not, and the people who like somebody sold their airspace won't have any opportunity to do that. Like, we won't let that to happen. We won't. And we shouldn't let that happen. The air doesn't belong to an institution. The air doesn't belong to, what is that about?
Thank you for your 3-minute presentation. Your concern is very understandable. Thank you. Next speaker is Jody Wertzman.
So many people, my name is Jody Wertzman, I live in the Beacon Park neighborhood, and so many people have said what I already said, and that was so heartfelt. Thank you. It was just everything I wanted to say was there, and everyone else said it. So I've lived in the Beacon Park neighborhood for 20 years. I have a charcoal filter now on my water. I've always tried to figure out what I eat and this and that. So I'm so concerned about the PFAS and the health for our whole community. What are people going to do? What's going to happen to the housing values? Where are people going to move? But I just really also want to urge that it is all of us working together, and I do feel that Dane County has the power because you guys own the land. So, and there is the operating agreement, so you could do something. I feel the city could do something. We don't need to, just because it's the military, we don't need to hide our little heads in the sand and let them roll over us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am if I could speak for all you guys, I'm tired of the military rolling over us, and I'm going to stand up for that. And I just want to urge everyone else to do that too. And I do feel Dane County has the power, and like you said, I feel they can stand up, they can say something. And you guys have the operation agreement. I just think that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I agree with Ed for the transparency. That would be awesome. And I don't think that there should be construction starting in April if we don't know how to deal with PFAS yet. If more of that PFAS is going to get into the waterways. So I sit up nights thinking about this. Get up early in the morning, send emails to people. So thank you, and I hope we can all work together to keep Madison the wonderful community it is. So thank you.
Thank you. The final speaker we have registered here is Andrea Ritland.
I can pass.
Pardon me?
I'll pass.
Okay. Next item on our